Today I'm going to talk about electromagnetic interference, people called sliders, and my theories on electromagnetic radiation in relation to the paranormal. All right, today I'm going to talk about sliders. Sliders are, let me Google it real quick. Sliders paranormal. Sliders is an acronym for street light interference phenomenon. And it's a phenomenon that quite a few people claim to have, where they walk underneath lights or street lights and they will flicker on and off like they're interfering with electronic activity, or their cell phones will die, or anything with batteries that they're holding will die. And when I heard about this, I was like, isn't that exactly what happens when people interact with like spirits or ghosts or Bigfoot or little people or pretty much anything paranormal? I was listening to Darkness Prevails. I listened to the paranormal stories that people turn in, those websites that share stories, kind of like what my channel is. And one of the stories had this lady encounter an alligator man when she was out in the country driving, and her car died. Her radio totally went off and started making weird staticky sounds, and she felt electricity. I can't share the story because it's not written down, but basically it was the same kind of phenomenon that you hear with like UFOs, like your phone's dead, your car just stops working, stuff like that. And I thought this was awfully familiar, that it's awfully funny that humans are doing the same thing to electronics that people are claiming cryptids do. And I think these two are correlated. Just like some stories I heard about the Fae, and like people who touch the Fae or touch a shadow person they claim is cold. The lights will flicker. Like they mimic this in horror movies. Lights flickering, like The Grudge. The lights start flickering, going on and off. And then you have some kind of entity moving like it's out of sync with our time, jerky, like exactly how they describe little people's movement and other strange paranormal creatures that people see with the jerky movement, as if they're out of sync with our timeline. And does that mean they're evil? I don't think it necessarily means evil, but I do think that it means that something strange scientifically is going on. Let me talk a little bit about EMFs and its effects on the human brain. So it has been hypothesized that various neurological effects may arise from the result of RF EMF exposure due to the proximity of the cranial nervous system during cellular phone use. These neurological effects include headache, changes in sleep habits, and changes in blood pressure, but there are many inconsistent results. Neurological cognitive disorders such as headaches, tremors, dizziness, loss of memory, loss of concentration, and sleep disturbances due to RF EMF have also been reported by several epidemiological studies. And then I'm just reading this off an NBCI article because I was Googling, does EMFs mess with people's minds? Because, stories of people encountering little people or aliens, and they have lapses in memory, or they seem like they're out of it. Like if you read some of the 411 stories, how some of the people, they kind of are acting really weird, like they're confused and disoriented. I even have a friend from Samoa. She was telling me stories about the little people there. They have little people in Samoa, by the way. And if any of the Samoans are watching, I forget the name that they call them, but they're pretty well known in their culture. And there's a mountain in Samoa, in the island of Samoa, where little people are known to be, and people avoid it. She was telling me that if you try to go to this area where the doorway to their world is, like on the mountain, as you get closer to the mountain, you get disoriented and confused. And I hear this a lot in a lot of stories, paranormal stories about disorientation, confusion. Like if you follow the missing 411, there's a lot of stories about how people are acting like really weird. And I think that might have to do with electromagnetic interference. So these studies on EMFs are basically not super high powered EMF. It's kind of like cell phone towers, stuff like that, and how it can mess with people. So there isn't very much studies on extreme levels or unusually high levels. But since it does interfere with the mind, I think that EMFs could be the explanation towards why confusion and memory loss are often associated with paranormal activity. And that might have to do with interdimensional stuff as well. So here's a lady who wrote I was searching the internet for people talking about sliders, like individuals who have stories about it. And I found this lady's post on Facebook. She's like, I've had a long time problem that has recently gotten much worse. My energy field seems to really mess with mobile phones. Regardless of the make or model of the phone I use, the GPS works oddly, especially if I'm angry or being in traffic. The phone won't ring when someone calls or display missed calls sporadically. And now the batteries on every phone I use are becoming drained within an hour of me using them. I've tried getting new phones, installing battery saver apps, all of the normal solutions, and have got nowhere. My aunt is the same way. She can't wear watches as the batteries never stay charged. I've read that this can be a sign of energy imbalance, although I have to say my aunt is a very happy, balanced person. She maintains that this is simply the effect of having a big energy field, which I do, and that nothing can really be done. I guess what I'm asking is if there are any energy balancing, protecting techniques I can learn to mitigate the issue. Imagine having a phone that works less well the more frustrated you get. So she'd get angry or frustrated with her phone and it would die faster or it would not work even more. So her experience with cell phones is similar to what happens when people are around paranormal entities. And is this because some psychic or shamanic energy that people can emit? And why have we not studied this to find out if they're emitting an energy? See, if I had the money and if I could do the research I wanted to do, I'd gather people like this and research what type of energy they're emitting to try to break down what kind of energy is being emitted by these paranormal creatures. And if you guys have ever heard, like back in the day, alien abductees and like tinfoil hats and how, oh, you're wearing a tinfoil hat, you're a psycho, ha ha ha. Like people be laughing about that. I get it. That's kind of stupid and paranoia and kind of crazy seeming. But if the shamanic or magical energy for interdimensional travel or whatever these things, how these things work is beyond our understanding. If it has to do with the electromagnetic energy or some type of energy like that, some type of energy that we don't really understand, could a Faraday cage around your head protect your brain from being interfered with by those energy fields? And I think the answer is probably yes. So if you're a person who's getting abducted by aliens or you're having memory loss and you keep encountering weird stuff and it's making you, it feels like a hazy dream, you might want to try out one of those tinfoil hats. I actually saw a website I was searching about tinfoil hats because I was like, if I'm looking for these things and I go out there and I become disoriented or confused, how could I potentially protect myself from that? And I saw websites that actually sell. It's kind of like a Faraday cage for your head. It's like a metallic lattice structure in a hat that protects from various wavelengths of energy. And I think theoretically that could potentially actually work to prevent like memory wipes or memory problems or brain problems with this type of energy. And I also got to wonder why these creatures aren't affected by it like we are. Maybe there's some type of way to learn to control it or something that we don't understand, or they're able to mitigate the effects of mental interference with their own brains. And here's a little article on sliders I found while searching the internet so you guys can get a better idea of what a slider is. One fine night, you're returning home after a long day's work. As you walk down the street, a block away from your house, no one else is around. The street lights are illuminating your path home. Strangely, the street lamps you just walked by all of a sudden turn off, just to turn on again as soon as you walk past it. Being a level-headed person that you are, you brush it off, and you think it's a simple coincidence, and you think nothing more of it. However, 3 days later, You walk the same street and the lights go off again as you walk under them. Even weirder this time around, 3 successive lamps are affected, every light all of a sudden switching off as you approach, just to turn on again as soon as you walk away. What just happened? Was this another random coincidence you should dismiss, or did you somehow affect the streetlights with hidden energy or power you didn't know you had? Many individuals have personally experienced, or at least witnessed, a streetlight suddenly turning off as somebody passes under it. While some might think this is a simple coincidence, there are others that suggest this an unidentified phenomenon caused by some people who may have an incomprehensible capability to affect electronics. Throughout the years, more and more individuals have ended up being more open with sharing their uncommon experiences, including street lamps, and this phenomenon became something called streetlight interference, or SLI. What is streetlight interference? Streetlight interference is a term created by a paranormal scholar and author, Hilary Evans, to represent the declared capability of individuals to turn streetlights or outdoor security buildings' lights on or off when they're passing near them. Experiences of this nature are rather typical, with many individuals all over the world declaring that they involuntarily and generally spontaneously cause street lamps to go out. Although there are lots of personal anecdotal evidence involving SLI experiences, the scenarios of each case are not consistently the same as with other instances. Some individuals report that they have just encountered switching off a single streetlight close by, while others claim to have influenced many streetlights in a row. There are likewise those that have the capability to randomly impact only specific streetlights, which makes it hard to discern testable pattern in studying SLI. Moreover, though most of SLI cases occur while walking, others say the phenomenon happens while they ride bicycles, motorcycles, or even the bus. Nevertheless, the SLI phenomenon is not restricted to streetlights alone. There are also reports of individuals who apparently can spontaneously and periodically affect other electronic gadgets, with various forms of battery-operated wristwatches to railway crossings to aircraft navigation devices. Some people also declare to affect volume levels on televisions, radios, and music players, and cause charged cards and other magnetically encoded cards to get harmed or erased while in their ownership. There are also those who typically experience issues with compasses, causing them to stop or malfunction. Individuals who apparently experience the SLI phenomenon are described as sliders. A lot of sliders experience a lack of validation from their relatives or friends, unless the time comes when the friends witness repeated incidents firsthand, without sufficient explanation for the phenomenon they experience, and without anyone to turn to verify them. Sliders are mostly entrusted to their own devices and imaginations, and hypothesizing concerning the nature of their supposed power to affect streetlights and other products and gadgets. Studies associated with streetlight interference in the contemporary world, where the empirical research decides the credibility of the theory or a hypothesis, any effort in figuring out the main reason for streetlight disturbance phenomenon without comprehensive scientific examination is dismissed as mere speculation and intensely rejected by the academic community. This is where the problem with studying SLI develops. Similar to other reported psychic paranormal phenomenon, SLI is extremely difficult, if not impossible, to replicate in a lab setting. They seem to occur spontaneously and sporadically, without the intentional objective of the slider. However, there are some informal tests that have been performed involving this phenomenon, and a few of the data collected in some research and studies are based greatly or entirely on the personal anecdotal evidence and subjective reports of the people who declare to have witnessed the experience of SLI on their own. Even then, these tests and studies have revealed that sliders are generally not able to recreate the SLI effect on demand. Prior to his death in 2011, the British paranormal scholar Hilary Evans was the foremost authority on SLI. Aside from being a pictorial archivist and authoring many books on the sliders phenomenon, Evans also helped found the Association of Scientific Research Study on the Anomalous Phenomenon, AASSAP, in 1981. And after receiving multiple reports from various individuals declaring that streetlights react to their presence in a mysterious manner, Evans decided to reveal the reality behind the secret. He collected numerous accounts of SLI through his research, which he referred to as Streetlight Disturbance Data Exchange, or SLIDE. The accumulation of this research study was the publication of his final book titled Sliders, The Enigma of Streetlight Disturbance, Explanations for Streetlight Interference. According to Evans, it is theoretically possible that everyone who declares to have experienced SLI might be lying. Nevertheless, given the majority of sliders who have no apparent inspiration apart from the natural and good desire to resolve this mystery, we can most likely set aside the purposeful deceit for the time being. Therefore, based on the different research studies, and presumptions from experts that are helpful or hesitant about the validity of the streetlight disturbance phenomenon, possible descriptions for witnesses claim that SLI can be organized into three broad categories: mental, paranormal, and mechanical. Psychological explanations in his books about streetlight disturbances, Evans raised this primary question: does the SLI take place at all, or are the alleged witnesses deluding themselves? According to Evans, a decisive answer to this question could not be produced until the SLI phenomenon is clinically tested. However, he also discussed the possibility that SLI could be a shared delusion, similar to the widespread misconception that has taken place in the past, such as the witchcraft mania that took place in the 16th and 17th century, and even in our more informed age, such as the ongoing alien abduction mania. Nevertheless, Evans likewise noted that SLI does not have the same psychological payoffs as witchcraft or abductions. Those who seek to improve their unique gift of affecting street lamps will not discover much to flatter themselves with achieving such a task. Simply put, while it's a possibility cannot be ignored, it appears extremely unlikely that the SLI experiences are misconceptions. There are likewise those that suggest that the SLI phenomenon may be attributed to individuals' tendency to see patterns in random noise, because it is uncommon for a light to turn off itself or when you stroll past it. It captures your attention when it does take place, and when it occurs several times consecutively, individuals are likely to assume that there is some sort of system at work that makes it possible. Therefore, some argue that SLI can trace its roots to the power of suggestion, which needs a mix of different aspects to work. As such, SLI could be caused by the regular behavior of bulbs aging, the witness's observer predisposition, and some other important elements that is unidentified to the person, which would assist in understanding the circumstance. Paranormal phenomenon, streetlight disturbance as a paranormal phenomenon, is thought about by skeptics to be at least most likely a possibility. By paranormal, we are relating to what happens outside the traditionally recognized normal, scientific speculations. It doesn't need to imply the supernatural force or the occult procedures involved. If SLI actually does happen, as sliders declare, then this phenomenon cannot be restricted in the specifications of standard science. Until now, there is no clinical acknowledgments that the human mind can trigger physical effects at a distance, which is what sliders allege to be the case in SLI. However, the issue with SLI being a paranormal phenomenon is that it will be difficult to carry out experiments to test SLI, because the phenomenon happens only at random, and it is not produced by the individual willing it to take place. There are also those who think that what is triggering street lamps to turn off could be some sort of energy that is released by the body. Sliders report that the circumstances they spontaneously affect street lamps typically happen while they are tired, stressed, furious, or sad. Others, on the other hand, believe that streetlights are impacted by some type of fixed electrical power that is produced by the body. There are also speculations that SLI may have something to do with the electrical impulses of the brain. At present, these electrical impulses are understood to just have an impact within the body of a specific individual, but if it might somehow have the effect outside of the body, then it could be the unconventional remote control that turns streetlights on and off with all the SLI eyewitnesses Mechanical result, according to Evans. The reality that mechanical gadgets is involved logically selects that the mechanical explanation needs to be searched for. This is specifically why some doubters suggest that SLI occurs as an effect of lights nearing the completion of their life. Typical modern street lights are of the low-pressure sodium vapor variety, which discharge red glow at launch and develop into a consistent black and white yellow once they are fully operating. The lights instantly turn on at sundown and go through activation of light sensitive. Fuck, this is boring. Anyway, sliders are turning off lights and stuff, and I didn't want to read that whole article because it was getting really boring. And there are a lot of stories of Bigfoot encounters where the battery dies that kind of matches the slider's interference. I didn't want to read that article. I'm sorry. That was freaking boring. You get the point. People, they can't prove it. They didn't really do a good research. They didn't do much research on it because people can't do it on demand. It's kind of like the astral projection research. They had a person that can do it on demand, but they didn't really delve too far into it. They just did an MRI scan on him while he was astral projecting, and they're like, look, his brain's activated. He's actually hallucinating. It's a hallucination. It's real. He really thinks he's seeing what he's seeing in a hallucinatory state. They didn't bother to check if what he saw was real or not. They could have easily tested by putting something in another room that he never had access to and putting an orange on the table or something and seeing if he could accurately describe what was in the other room. But instead, they just did an MRI scan looking at his brain, saw that it was active. His visual cortex and all this was active as if he was actually seeing things and moving, but he wasn't. So they call it hallucination without trying to validate it at all. I have friends that are sliders, and some of them have actually exploded light bulbs by walking by them, like multiple times, like frying electronics and light bulbs going just shattering. This sliders phenomenon also happens with Bigfoot. Here's a little story I found on the internet. I'm not one to believe in the woo aspects in the Bigfoot research, but on the weekend of 10/27/2017, the day we set up our camera system, which runs off a 12-volt marine battery and only run the system during the night time, the system will run up to 13 to 14 hours with a monitor of 4 cameras on the DVR drive. The day before the investigation, all the batteries were charged and checked for a full charge. On the evening of the 27th, I turned on the system and it was running, showing full charge and all power indicators. The system ran for about 2 hours and suddenly shut down. I checked all connections and everything checked out except that the battery was drained. Well, no problem. So I charged the battery and the other battery was drained as well. I keep a battery charging at the station on hand to charge the phones, handheld cameras and such. This too was fully charged, but when we went out and tried to charge our phones, we only had enough power to charge 2 phones, and this charging system we have can recharge everyone's phones and cameras all weekend 3 or 4 times. One of the people stated to me that after fully charging his phone, he had 60% battery drain in just a couple of minutes after charging the phone completely. I had an 80% battery drain in a matter of minutes. The next thing that happened was I tried to start my 4-wheeler and the battery was drained on it. After arriving home, I placed both batteries on the charger and plugged the charging station in. And the next day, after everything was charged, I set up the camera system as I did in the field system, and it ran nonstop for 12 and a half hours on one battery and 13 hours and 17 minutes on the other battery. The charging station was charged and still had a full charge and no starting problems with the 4-wheeler. We've had this happen on a couple occasions in all types of weather conditions in this one area. I have no explanation for what caused this. Some will say it was caused by the cold weather, but we have used this system in colder weather and extreme heat of the summer with no problems. There are those who say that it's paranormal and there could be some logical explanation. And this is something that we will conduct a detailed investigation and analysis of this phenomena. So I had some theories about this. Sliders, if it's true that they can read thoughts, like I know that there's people who can claim that it can read thoughts, and if it's possible that this type of energy can mess with people's minds, drain batteries, mess with people's minds, cause confusion, cause memory loss, And yeah. And people also are doing this to their electronics. It means that it's a phenomenon that we just don't understand that happens, some type of energy. And if it's happening to all this stuff, there might be a way to protect against it. Like, let's say Faraday cages around your electronics to prevent the draining. Maybe that will work. And the only way to figure this out would be to have a reliable area with battery drainage and have one thing protected while other things aren't. It kind of puts a big Achilles heel on research because your gear could just die. Is there a way to protect your gear with electromagnetic shielding or EMP bombs, electromagnetic pulse bombs that the military uses? They have EMF protected vehicles. Will these still drain around this phenomenon, or will they be protected? Is there a way to EMF proof your gear? Is there a way to EMF proof your brain? Perhaps some shamans that know tricks can protect their mind from being confused from this stuff. Or you might need physical stuff like one of those tinfoil type hats. I had a theory that they're able to sense people and mess with people's minds. And that if you were to wear something that completely shielded your body from electromagnetic interference, kind of like a Faraday cage around your body, you might be able to camouflage yourself from psychic attacks. But the only way to test that would be to get humans or twins that could read each other's thoughts and then experiment with them to see if you can sever the connection by putting a tinfoil hat or something on one of them, or putting them in a complete EMF protected cage and see if it blocks the psychic link. You got to think outside the box when you're trying to find stuff like this, since we don't understand it fully. And maybe that's why no one's able to film them, because they can sense us. Maybe there's a way to protect against it. Maybe not. I wish I could get the people together for experimenting and figuring out the answers to my questions, but unfortunately that's going to be difficult because I'd have to find the people, and then I'd have to supply the gear to protect against it, and I'd also have to try to find meters that could read various forms of energy, because we don't know exactly what type of energy they're using. So this all correlates. Darkness. Paranormal creatures show up in the dark more. Light is electromagnetic frequency. Electromagnetic frequencies EMFs can mess with your brain, can make you confused, can make you forgetful. A lot of alien abduction stories have confusion, forgetfulness, missing time, blah, blah, blah. The shaman in that one interview I did a long time ago, talking about how the shaman had to black out the windows and turn off the electric box in order to do his shamanism, made me think that it all is linked to some type of energy that's linked to light somehow. It might not be directly light, but it has to do with something to do with the energy. Light interferes with this ability. So it's probably possible to shield from it and become, like, you know how we wear camouflage to blend in with the environment to hide from animals and other humans? What if we have to shield ourselves from a certain type of energy to make it so they're not aware of us? What if we shielded ourselves with some type of gear like that, and they couldn't detect us, and then we can come right up on them and scare the hell out of them, and they would be like, "How the hell did you get here? Like, how is it possible for you to sneak up on me? I'm supposed to be able to sense you." So that, like, it's like they have this trump card above us. They understand this energy. They understand this phenomenon, and we're totally ignorant of it. And they use it regularly. And we don't understand it. And because we're so ignorant of it, they can basically run circles around us, and we can't do anything about it. Maybe there's a way to balance the playing field and put a stop to their ability to run circles around us, and level the playing field so that we can get evidence of them without them being able to hide. And I think that's possible. This video is just kind of me sharing my thoughts, talking about sliders. If any of you have any experiences like that, or if you know anyone who's able to read minds, please do the experiments that I talk about. Get those tinfoil hats, Google it, look for something for alien abductions to protect their brains, and see if you can block psychic activity, see if you can block and I wish more people could do the experiments I say, like totally protect yourself in like a Faraday cage, like an EMF suit when you go out looking for Bigfoot, and see if they're not able to detect you anymore. Maybe the reason we can't sneak up on them is because we're not aware of that type of energy, and we can completely mask it if we tried or if we experimented. And there's only one way to find out. I was looking up EMF shielding. There's see-through versions, like little bags. I was thinking of putting cameras through it and then have the lens stick out. But I don't know if I'm wasting my time, so I haven't done it. Anyway, sorry for not making videos for a while. They were replacing the window in my room, and I had to like tear everything apart, take my TV down, and like dismantle shelves and stuff. And it took them over a week to do it. So I was sitting in a dirty room. I use my room for my studio. And I was trying to explore and find mines and stuff because summer's ending and I was trying to get the most out of it. But it took a long time and I spent many days exploring and with little results. So I didn't make any videos on that. But I'll try to force myself. This is like a habit. Like if you guys have ever, if you ever done like trying to get into shape, working out, or trying to be productive in some way, and it's kind of hard to start. It's the same thing with making videos, because I got to sit here, set up my whole studio setup, clean the table, set up my mic, set the gain for my mic, and have all the lighting set up and have like information set up for the video. And it's kind of time consuming, and it's something I got to get used to. So I'll continue pushing myself, and eventually it'll become a habit. But for now, it's kind of a struggle. So until next time, guys, it's good to be talk. I'll push myself to make another video soon.